Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Alyce Desrosiers, and she's here to talk with us about her new book, The Nanny Manual. Now, Alyce has over 20 years' experience guiding hundreds of parents through the process of hiring and retaining the best nanny for their child. Early in her career, she recognized that children thrive when parents and nannies provide care in a similar enough way to ensure the child learns to trust those adults caring for him or her and to understand who she or he is in the world. So let's welcome to the show Alyce.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here, and what a great book. And gosh, it answers so many questions for people that are looking to incorporate a nanny or even how to decide how to incorporate another person to their household to help them with raising their children.
Yes, a very important decision. Yes.
Well, and so what inspired you to write this book?
Well, there's actually three main reasons why I felt it was important to write the book. And first and foremost, I'm a clinical social worker, and I wanted to ensure that kids get the best care possible. And I also wanted parents to get the information and the resources that they need to make this most important decision about who to hire to take care of their child. And lastly, I really wanted parents and nannies to know that good care happens when their relationship, the parent and the nanny relationship, is a healthy one. So that's what inspired me really to get started to write the book. I really wanted to give parents an appreciation of what is involved when they make the decision to hire a nanny, how to go about the process to hire, and how to work with their nanny to give their child the best care possible.
Well, it's such a great resource. And for people who are all on different ends of the spectrum looking for assistance in the home, you really do provide not just the breakdown, as far as what would be the best type of person for them, but also how to go about researching and learning more about the person that they're going to incorporate.
Yes, yes. One of the challenges that parents have when they make a decision to hire is they come into a market that of childcare providers that is unlicensed and unregulated, and that in and of itself presents a big challenge to parents to know who to hire and, of course, how to go about the process so that they can establish at least a very beginning level of trust that the person that they're leaving in the care for their child is somebody that could provide responsible care and, of course, someone that they could trust to provide the best care for their child.
So, when people are looking to add a nanny, or maybe it's a babysitter, or they're not quite sure what level of this that spectrum they're looking for, what are some tips that you give families to kind of weed out what those are for them?
Well, I always expect and want parents to first, really know what it is that they need before they even start to look. Um, and that involves really not only knowing, um, a definition. Is this mother's helper that they're needing? Is this a full-time, full-charge nanny that they're needing? Is this someone, of course, temporary, or someone who would be taking more at a babysitter role with the family? And then, of course, to be taking a close look at the schedule and the hours and days, of course, that they need care. Um, and making really informed decisions, or looking closely really at the other pragmatics of the hiring process, which has to do with legal issues, has to do with what minimum health, safety, and background check requirements that they should expect of whoever is caring for their child. So there are some practical considerations that parents need to be thinking about and making decisions about before they even start. And then, of course, there is the other more emotional landscape that they should be also addressing before they start, even looking for a nanny.
Before beginning that journey. Well, in your book, you talk about the new mother and that it takes a village. Can you expand a little bit on that, if what that means for our listeners?
Well, you know, and I'll start with the question about the new mother, because we have since the certainly the feminist movement starting in the 60s and going well into the 1970s have supported moms to be able to return to the workplace while also being responsible to care for their children. And even though we have provided a lot of support to help moms be able to do that, these have been primarily in the realm of work family benefits and supports, such as job sharing or family medical leave. What we've failed to really include in this is just really how moms would feel about doing this and how they would go about really sharing this responsibility to be raising healthy children with someone else. And for some moms, clearly that is for every Monday through Friday, which can be up to 10, 12 hours a day of care. So that this is what moms now have been facing since the 1970s is how do I take the responsibility and adopt the identity of being a mom while I am also handing over some of that responsibility to another. And that other, certainly here in this country, is often someone who is not family, someone who is a stranger. So, in that regard, I look at it takes a village as it being someone who enters into the family life. Generally, when mom returns back to the workplace after maternity leave, and really is in many ways instrumental, and I would almost say a partner with the family in supporting and assisting in raising healthy young children. So in that case, it's in many ways a new mom, and it does very much take a village in order to be able to do this. And part of that village does include a nanny.
Yeah, well, and especially when you have parents, both moms and dads that are looking to continue their career and being at home as much, I would think that having somebody in the home would really help them move things forward with their family in general. For as you were saying, like it depends on the different hours that they need somebody for. Maybe it's picking up the kids from school and dropping them off, or whatever that might look like.
That's right. That's right. Generally, yes.
No, go ahead.
Well, what we often see and hear, certainly in the Bay Area, where a lot of the work that I've been doing with families takes place, is that when parents with a newborn start and make the decision to return back to work after maternity leave, it's difficult, if not almost impossible, to find an opening in out of home care, in a child care center, in a family daycare home. So, for parents who need to work long hours, then they often have no alternative but to hire a nanny because child care is not possible to be found otherwise in out of home care. As and as children get to be closer to the preschool age, 2.5 or 3 years old, and as available openings in preschools become more available, parents often transition in the form of care from a nanny to a preschool setting. At the same time, just as you pointed out, for many parents, they still need somebody who'll take responsibility to be doing the pickup from school and being with the children until mom and dad get home, which often is between 6:30 in the evening. So the need for a nanny often continues, even though the hours may change, and the kind of care may look differently as the children get older.
Well, and you touched on this just a little bit ago in regards to challenges that parents face in hiring a nanny. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see that parents come to you and go, gosh, we really need help with this?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is really finding the right person to be part of their family for that time in their family life. Um, you know, the market is, as I had said, an unlicensed and unregulated market. So parents, of course, need to be asking questions first of themselves before they get started to have the basics down. And then often parents are going out either to local mothers groups to look for resources. They're going online to large online websites such as care.com, or certainly by word of mouth looking for someone. But the real heart and soul of the decision about who to hire often falls down on not only is someone available during the hours and days that they need care, but who is this person and how does she care for children? And will she be caring for children in a similar enough way that we do, so that our child gets um, a, a predictable and a reliable care? So often, there's the pragmatics of finding someone that is challenging, but it's also who to hire that would fit in well with the family that also presents a challenge.
With the family dynamics. Do you often get people that come up to you and say, we've seen Mary Poppins, we want that lady who's going to like transform our home and our family, and she's hitting all of our high marks on our wish list?
Well, I think that's certainly something that most parents do want, and it's the myth of Mary Poppins, someone that would just show up at their door when they need someone, that would be available whenever they need care, and certainly isn't going to break the family budget. That kind of profile is someone that would be, and rightfully so, on anyone's wish list. What often happens, of course, is that reality certainly strikes early, and parents have to be making prioritizing expectations. Sometimes in areas where they don't want to compromise, but in order to find good care, then some of these wishes or expectations have to kind of fall down on the list, and they can't always get all of what they want.
Are you finding that when you meet with people, it's more in some ways of managing expectations so that they understand what's doable as far as hiring the right fit for their home, as opposed to um, maybe trying to live up to some type of fantasy Mary Poppins nanny?
Well, yes, I think just in any kind of a hiring decision, or just, of course, in any relationship that someone would have, managing expectations is always front and center. I always do want parents to be putting out there on the table, everything that they would want, and then begin to, based on the realities of the market, um, look a little bit closer at what is on the list and reprioritizing it.
And moving from there, do you have a maybe a story you can share with us? Because I know you've got many in your book that talk about people that are looking for that perfect person, and just how they come to find the perfect nanny for their home.
Well, I probably should point to the very first story, or one of the very first stories in the book. I think it's I've named the mom. It's not Melissa. Goodness, sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but
Oh no, that's okay because you've got lots of great stories in here, so I could imagine.
it's I'll think of it in just a minute. But it's about the mom that really um, wanted to, that was a perfectionist, and we do see this often. Moms who are very committed to be returning back to the workforce and have been very, very successful in their career. That often, sometime during their second or their third trimester, they get organized very early, knowing that they will be needing care certainly very soon after the baby is born, and definitely by the time they return back to work after maternity leave. So, the story really is about the mom who really, as a perfectionist, wanted to do everything right, started early, had a very clear set of expectations, and had prioritized them, and then went through interviews one after the other, hired one person, and that person started shortly after the baby was born. And as soon as, I shouldn't say as soon as, but within a matter of a week, the nanny just couldn't be doing anything correct. And she let that nanny go, went on to hire a second nanny and a third nanny and a fourth nanny, and each time nothing seemed right. So the end result was really learning that, through experience, that some that nothing would ever be perfect, of course, and that nannies are human, and that um, the the relationship that she would create with any nanny had to include letting go some of the expectations that she had in the very beginning, in order to be working closely with the person that she hired and to trust her.
Well, and that seems, I mean, you've brought this up a couple times. The trust factor is so important. And with most families, I can imagine that they say that's probably pretty high on their list.
Well, it definitely is, and rightfully so. I mean, parents have to trust that the nanny would be doing right by them and, of course, by their child. The challenge with hiring a nanny is that, um, parents need to be able to trust her enough in the beginning to be able to take their leave, and then to be having a relationship with her over time that would build on that foundation or that beginning level of trust. Um, we expect a lot from parents when they hire a nanny, because they're making a very important hiring decision based on having met with this person for, in the book, I certainly recommend that parents, beyond the first interview, go into a second interview and then spend a 2 week trial or training with their nanny before they take their leave. But even that, having known somebody for anywhere between 3 weeks to a month, you would want them to have a beginning level of trust. But it's not as though they've known each other for years and they've developed a long relationship where they know this person very, very well. Trust is very important. Not only that, they can be working well together, but also, of course, that the care of the child is good.
Well, and especially, I mean, you brought this up before when we're dealing with an industry that's unlicensed and unregulated, trust is even that much more important because you want to make sure that everything, is going to work out okay because you're really handing over your most precious, piece of you to a person that is a stranger in your home that you're looking to develop this relationship with.
Yes, yes, yes. One of the um, you know greatest abdications of responsibility really is at the federal government level, where we um, have not we fail to recognize nannies as being um, professionals in childcare professionals. They are unlicensed, they are unregulated market. If someone wanted to work in a family daycare home, or if they wanted to work in a child care center, then they would have had to have met some very basic minimum health, safety, background, and education requirements in order to do so. Um, in addition, that we give our taxpayer, a lot of our taxpayer dollars goes to, and rightfully so, supporting childcare professionals in order to provide good care, to know what makes good care, and to be providing good care, and to be working closely with parents to ensure quality care. None of this gets filtered out to be supporting nannies who are doing responsible work, and clearly very given the huge responsibility to be caring for children during the most important years of their life, from 0 to 5. And that lack of recognition and lack of support and really lack of professionalization for nannies really is a travesty. And again, clearly does not support those many, many families who hire nannies. Again, it's both unfortunate and I think a big abdication of responsibility that we have both at the federal government level as well as even down to the professional level, where professional organizations that support childcare providers in out of home care really don't provide the kind of support to nannies and recognize them as professionals doing important and valuable work that they do.
Yes, without a doubt. Well, and so to kind of dovetail with this, what are some of the misconceptions that people have in regards to hiring a nanny?
Well, there in the book I state that there are 10, and they're pretty well known. One is what I call sort of the smoke and mirrors syndrome, and that means that 20 years of experience means that it's 20 years of good experience. The other is that I can't afford quality. All the good nannies work for wealthy families. The other myth is I just want a babysitter. All she's doing is just watching my kids. The other one, in some ways, touches on what we had spoken about previously, is our nanny should be perfect in every way. Um, our nanny loves us and she'll do anything that we want and be available anytime that we need her. The other myth that we see often is that one size fits all. She was great with my best friend's family, so of course she's going to be great with us. Um, the other is sort of the yo-yo effect, and that happens. We see often where the last nanny didn't work out. Maybe she was young, so when I get started to find someone different, then I'll look for someone who's older this time. The other is what I call sort of the percentage effect. She'll do 70% house cleaning and 30% childcare, so I'll get a good house cleaner. My child knows best. It's another misperception that, if my toddler says that he doesn't like her and wants her to go away, then away she goes. Of course, not trusting your gut. My gut says something doesn't feel right, even though everything else seems okay. And finally, the last misperception that we often see is that one about, I'll get started tomorrow. There's plenty of time to do this. again, a misperception because clearly it does take time to go through a process, an informed process to hire. I generally advise parents that, it's good 4 to 6 weeks to get through a solid process to hire someone. So the myth or the misperception that I'll just get started tomorrow, there's plenty of time to do this, is another misperception that we see.
I would imagine it takes some time to find the correct person for a household, and it's something that can't really be rushed through.
Yes, that's right. The typical process, as I've seen it over the years, does take 4 to 6 weeks to hire. Where the very first week is really involved assuming that you've sat down and made some important decisions before you even start looking. But in the first week, just getting the word out and hearing back from others about who is available. That takes a good week to be getting the word out and filtering through the many responses that you get, to be making decisions, which typically happens sometime around the second week, about who to interview. If a parent has done some good screening, then meeting with anywhere from 3 to 5 candidates is a good number to be interviewing. And at this point in time, along this timeline, parents are well into the second and into the third week to be going through the initial interviews. And at that time, of course, parents should expect to be going into a second interview with most often 2 out of the 5 candidates that they've met. Second interviews typically are informal and more getting to know a candidate and asking questions that you may not have had a chance to ask in the first interview. But at this point, with second interviews, you're well into the third, almost the fourth week. And then, of course, you would want and ideally have a good 2 weeks together with the candidate that you've selected to go into a trial period, which really is a time for really training to be, supporting and teaching your nanny everything that has to do with the care of your child, their daily routines, of course, where everything is in the home and, of course, in the neighborhood, so that at the end of the 2 weeks, she has had enough information working ideally side by side with you to be able to be providing responsible and good care for your child, that ideally your child has had time to get to know who this person is and to have a level of trust that person is going to be taking good care of him or her. And of course, for mom to be able, or dad to be able to take leave knowing that their child is in good care. So this all takes place very quickly, and again, as you can see, 4 to 6 weeks is a timeline where parents should expect to go through an informed process.
It could seem like 4 to 6 weeks would go by very quickly with all that taking place, the second interview, and everything that needs to be done to ensure that you have the best candidate, for the job.
Yes, it does go by very quickly. And of course, life happens and not everything goes like clockwork and as smoothly as expected. So, giving yourself plenty of time to be able to manage some of the unexpected changes that can occur through the process is also another important consideration when giving yourself enough time to be able to go through an informed search.
On that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Alyce Desrosiers in regards to her new book, The Nanny Manual. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. So we've been talking with special guest Alyce Desrosiers in regards to her new book, The Nanny Manual. So Alyce, I have a question. How involved are dads in this hiring process? I think a lot of times people think that maybe dads aren't that well either informed or that involved when it comes to hiring a nanny. What's the reality of all that?
Well, dads are included, and I think, and I hope that I had made that clear, but it's often that they're included more as a silent partner in the process. In my experience, and I've worked with hundreds of families here in the Bay Area, dads are very involved in the decision-making process. They want to make a good hiring decision. But what often happens, either by default or by necessity, that they end up being, as I think of, as sort of the silent third in the hiring process. And this can happen in some very subtle, unspoken ways. Often, the media, as well as common perception, I shouldn't say common perceptions, but more media has not been favorable towards dads and nannies, where clearly we have some very high-profile dads who have not done right by their nannies, or have had famous dads have had affairs with their nannies. So oftentimes, dads take a back seat because of this misperception about their role with nannies. But more on a practical note, if mom is on maternity leave, then often she's the one that gets to be the point of contact, to be managing all of the logistics of the hiring process, with dad stepping in for interviews and supporting the decision. The other is that oftentimes the relationship that parents have with their nanny around the care of their child, often that is the emotional landscape of this relationship happens between moms and nannies. And in that regard, dads are often relegated again to the silent third, where they're supporting the mom and nanny relationship. because that oftentimes is where the heart of the hiring is, and the heart of the care it goes.
So, and I'm glad that we touched on that and talked about that because I think it's important. But, I think you're right. Some of the perception is like the dads either there's these um, inappropriate relationships, or it doesn't feel like the dad's really involved. And I loved how you explain in your book how important it is to have that work, that the parents work together in finding the perfect person. At what point should they also incorporate the children?
Well, it obviously depends upon the child as well as the age of the child. When um, when children are infants, up until I'd say 12 months of age, parents often include the child in the interview process. And it can be a good screening tool for a lot of parents as they're interviewing candidates and seeing how the temperament goes between the nanny and the child with the infant. But as children get older, then certainly whether it has to do with the very early months where separation anxiety kicks in, or when children start to get to be a preschool age and begin to have some very um, um, their own ideas about who they would want to be taking care of them, then I often suggest that the child gets to be incorporated into the decision-making process, generally around the second interview time, where again it's less formal, and at that point in time, having the nanny and the child begin to get to know each other and to be supporting that relationship. That's generally a good time for children 12 months and older to be incorporated in the decision-making process.
Well, and your book at the very back has some very valuable resources for families looking to have a nanny added to their home, but you give these resources that parents can pretty much use, from contracts to pre-screening. Can you share with us the importance behind some of this and references?
Sure. I tend to think of this hiring process as somewhat of a puzzle of various pieces that do come together to give parents as well as the nanny reassurances that this is the right place for them to both be. And so those pieces do include references, they do include contracts, they do include clearly the health, safety, and background checks. It definitely includes Nanny's experience. It includes also her own values and how she teaches them to children. It includes, her experience in caring for children of the same age. All of these pieces need to be investigated as you go through the hiring process. And little by little, as these pieces are known, they do fit well enough together to be giving parents that sense of trust that this is the right person and that this person I could trust to be leaving my child in their care. So it's not any one piece, but there are many different pieces, and they do include all of those that we've been talking about.
Now, can families expect to provide the nanny with, let's say, like health care and 401ks? Or is there a level of expectation for those kind of things?
Well, um, parents should expect to be paying a livable wage, and whatever that livable wage is in their city or state, that livable wage can be known. Basically, and generally that's known of as an hourly rate. The other expectation for hiring a nanny these days is vacation, holidays, and sick pay. And generally, whether a nanny is full time or part time, then it's 2 weeks of vacation a year that nannies are eligible to get, as well as holiday pay for some of the major holidays. And then it is a law that nannies are to be given sick time because they are considered by the Department of Labor to be hourly wage employees. So those are the standards. In some urban areas, certainly here in San Francisco, some nannies do request a stipend to cover part or all of their monthly premiums to pay for medical insurance. And some nannies do request a stipend to cover or towards their 401k retirement.
Okay. Well, I think that all sounds very reasonable, and most people who are hiring a nanny would pretty much expect to be reasonable when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, I would say that is the case. Certainly here in the Bay Area, these expectations are quite standard. But I also can say that, the industry, the nanny industry, doesn't have any recognizable standards of care that would inform parents about what are some of the expectations when you hire a nanny. And that's something that really does need to be developed and made clear here, that these standards of hiring standards needs to be uniform and better known.
Well, I love how in the back of your book, we kind of chat about this a little bit. Well, I did at least, as we kind of toggled into other questions about the resources you have in the back of the book. And for people who don't even know, like, what am I even going to put in an ad, or what are the questions I'm going to ask for an interview? Because that can seem a little confusing if no one's hired, if a family has never hired a nanny before. But you give very clear guidelines on just what they can expect and even things like evaluation forms, so that they can determine whether or not that this is a good fit for their family.
Yes. I wanted in this book to give parents all the resources that they need in order to go through an informed hiring process. And there are a lot of resources in the book that could support parents to be going through an informed process. And as you pointed out, everything from a checklist to be able to create a job description that gives parents really a full laundry list from A to Z, really, about all of the possibilities of what they need or what they might need. And then to be creating an announcement, to be getting the word out, so that the most essential parts of the job description are covered. And then, of course, to be going through a screening process and an interview process, and having forms readily available where you could be making notes and referring back to them as they go through the interview process, to be making some decisions. All of that is there, yes.
And I mean, even a driver authorization form, just things that people don't think about, but they really need if they're going to have their children with somebody and transported, emergency forms and all that good stuff.
Yes, that's right.
So let's say, okay, so we've picked the perfect nanny. We've gone through all of this. We've got our forms. We feel like we have the perfect fit, and this person's on their 2-week trial. So now it's day 1, and our children are leaving with the nanny. What can parents kind of expect that first day? And what are some things they can do to make it a little bit easier?
Yes, first days are hard. For some moms or some dads, it's harder than others. I would say that one of the best ways for any parent to prepare themselves for that first day is really giving themselves permission for the first day to be hard. That really, no matter how much a parent trusts that their nanny will be providing good care for their child, the realization that they're handing over some of their parenting responsibility to another is clear when they walk out the door and close it behind them. It's a statement to really their own really inner self, or their parenting identity, and really a defining moment about who they are as a parent. Um, for some parents, when they walk out the door, it's really a relief that they've done what they needed to do well as a parent. And for others, it's really a part of who they are is left at the door. Parents should really know that these mixed feelings can come up on the first day that they leave their child with their nanny.
Well, I could see where it'd be a little conflicted, because here they have their pride and joy, and they know they've done a good job picking the right person, and kind of going, ooh, okay, it's first day, here we go, and I'm sure they want it to be as successful as possible.
That's right. And really, no matter how many mixed feelings a parent might have as they take their leave on that first day, it's always important that they have a discussion with their nanny about what that first day is going to be like. And really, for a lot of moms, if anything, just let your nanny know that, this might be a hard day for me. So I might be calling you every hour to check in, or I might just be calling you out of the blue when sort of I miss my little one, when that feeling hits home. So really making plans for a lot of FaceTime or a lot of Skype calls or Zoom video calls. Have your nanny keep a journal, not only to record the regular feeding and sleeping and play routines, but really where they went, what they did, and how things went. The other thing, first days are certainly hard for moms, and they can be, really stressful as well for the nanny. But we can't overlook the fact that it can also be a hard first day for the child too. So really, depending upon the child's age and depending upon the temperament, that preparing your child really for this first day is also important to make it a positive one for them. And maybe, all the child needs to know is that, you trust your nanny will take good care of them. Or to talk about what they might be doing that day together. Letting them know that how you'll all talk together while you're away and when you'll be back. Children often really just need to know that their mom or their dad trusts the person that they're being left with, and that they'll be paying attention to where they go and what they do, and that they're available to talk to them anytime. And of course that they'll have fun together while mom and dad are at work. So again, preparing your child for the first day is as important as preparing yourself, as well as preparing your nanny for what will happen.
I can only imagine that fabulous nannies really are in high demand, and word gets around. So what are some things that parents can do to make sure that they keep their fabulous nanny?
I talk about this in the book in terms of sort of the 4 C's. One is collaboration is important, and that's keeping in mind that your nanny really is part of the team in helping care for and raise your child to be the healthy person that you want your child to be. The other C is communication. And, we talk a lot about having effective communication between employer and employees. But, in this particular hire, effective communication means really taking the time certainly in the beginning, to be sitting down at least once a week and really having a good heart-to-heart talk about how are things going, and with you and with this little person, and how are things going between the two of you, and keeping a really healthy, open dialogue between the two of you. Between the parent and nanny is so important, certainly in the very beginning, but ongoing over time. The other is compensation, and paying a livable wage is so important, that I can't overemphasize the fact that nannies are in the park with other nannies sitting on the bench, and conversations happen. And, if your nanny is not being paid a livable wage and she finds out from her cohort of other nannies in the park that they're getting paid more than her, then, it's parents run the risk of nannies leaving far too soon. And then finally, continued education and training. And, I'm a very strong advocate of having professional development, education, and training for nannies in the same way that we have for preschool teachers or family daycare providers. Unfortunately, in this particular industry, there's, a myth or an expectation that, nannies who have been doing this work for a long time, they don't need to learn anything more because they've taught me so much or they know so much. And while I certainly believe that is true, because I know many nannies here with 20 plus years of experience, nannies want to learn, and there's certainly so much valuable information that we now know about the importance of the very first 5 years of a child's life. That nannies can benefit from learning, that really impacts how they care for children and how they communicate with parents about the care that they're providing for children. That continued education and training is another part of keeping the relationship healthy.
Do parents ever feel like they are not in charge? And if they do, is there something that they should be focusing on to make sure that they stay in charge of not only their children's, but the nanny as well?
This is one of those emotional challenges that parents have to navigate when they hire a nanny. For some of the moms that I speak with, there is always this worry that, if my nanny spends more time with my child than I do, and more, you can put it in terms of numbers, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, day in and day out, my nanny is with my child. Then, if she does a good job, then does that mean I come in second? Or if she knows more about what's going on with my child, does that mean that she's a better mom? These kinds of worries can come up unexpectedly for parents, and I always remind them that this is a natural part and in some ways a good part of the relationship that parents have with the nanny, because in many ways you do want your nanny to be informed and to be attentive and to be knowledgeable. But this worry that you're not in charge does creep up in some very unexpected ways. That's where good communication and collaboration comes into play, because if a parent, if they're starting to feel as though they're not in charge of the relationship, then sitting down and having a healthy discussion with your nanny is key to be alleviating some of the worries, as well as to be having an orientation with the nanny that we're in this together. And what is it that you're seeing that about what's going on with my child that I could learn about or that we could work on together? It's not that someone is doing a better job or that someone knows more. It's really about, again, we're in this together, learning from each other about this little person in order to provide him or her the best care possible.
Yeah, to move that possible. Well, and so for our listeners that are looking to incorporate a nanny into their home, of course, we want them to pick up the nanny manual and have that on hand. What tips would you like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, first and foremost, um, to be recognizing that hiring a nanny to be taking on the responsibility to supporting you in providing the best care for your child and raising a healthy young person to be who you would want this person to be is an important hire. And that going through a process to make a decision about who to hire should be a thoughtful one and an informed one. I've certainly provided in the book itself and through the website, the Institute for Families and Nannies, or tiffin.org, all of the resources that you would need to go through in a hiring process. So I would want parents to be able to pay attention to what they're doing, to go through a process in an informed way to make this important decision, and to be working together with your nanny in order to ensure that your child does get the best care possible. Again, it does take a village to be raising children these days, and part of that village does include a nanny. And I would want parents to be seeing this important hire as an important person in their process to be raising a healthy young child.
Now, you mentioned your nonprofit, tiffin.org. Can you explain a little bit about what the mission of that is?
Sure. We launched actually just in January of this year, and our mission is to establish a recognizable standard of care for the nanny industry and best practices for parents and nannies to work together to provide the best care for children. So we're going about doing that by providing professional development and education and training opportunities for nannies in partnership with parents. And we're in process to get our monthly continued education and training workshops up and running, which will start in September of this year. And we are also very well underway with our professional development program, which is an infant toddler caregiver course offered for nannies and through a national organization, PITC, which is a partner with WestEd.
Okay. Well, and so if people are looking to connect with you and learn more about your book, The Nanny Manual, would they go to that website, or is there another resource for them to look at?
I think the best resource for them, I wrote the book and I donated the book to the Institute for Families and Nannies. So I think the best way for parents to be getting in touch with me and our organization is through tiffin.org, TIFFAN.org.
Oh, perfect. Well, Alyce, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you very much. I truly, truly enjoyed it. It was a pleasure. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Alyce. It's been fabulous to spend this time with you and learn more about your book, The Nanny Manual. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Mary Ann airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.